Fractured vertebrae in my lower back. Coach Ayers got fired. Had to sit out my whole junior year. So kind of everything just turned upside down.
Damon Stringer, born September 15th, 1977. LeBron James has become the standard for players advanced at a young age that go on to dominate amateur competition, having great expectations of them to succeed on the next level and hopefully become great professional athletes as well. When you talk about the best case scenario for a high school basketball star, it doesn't get much better than LeBron's story of how he not only lived up to the expectations but far surpassed them on his way to becoming one of the greatest African American achievers of all time. That's the standard, and as far as any player surpassing what he was able to do, I don't think that'll ever happen again. But it doesn't mean there weren't players before LeBron's hype began that carried that same energy about and for them in the community locally and even nationwide. Today's feature is one of them. Damon Stringer, coming up, according to the Cleveland Plain Dealer, was a hero to many young kids and basketball fans in the area. He was the city's golden child with a bright future ahead of him before anyone ever heard of LeBron James down in Akron. He came from a good family, was educated himself, and a leader on every basketball team he's ever been a part of, on his way to being one of the top high school prospects in the country, recruited by schools like Clemson and Ohio State, and eventually winning the Ohio Mr. Basketball Award in 1995. He committed to Ohio State and there was on pace to carve out a successful career that could have very well led him to being drafted. He led the team in scoring as a freshman and sophomore, and with 2 more years on that stage, who knows what could have happened. Instead, what did is Damon Stringer was caught up in multiple cases of off-court infractions where his disorderly conduct wiped away every hoop he sunk for the school. He was dismissed from the basketball program and had to transfer to Cleveland State, where he only got to play 1 year before the NBA made judgment on his future by drafting him or not. Many teams felt he wasn't an NBA talent by that time, but some teams did and gave him workout opportunities like the Cavaliers, a team he was on his way to work out for when he was pulled over and arrested for robbery of Indian star pitcher CeCe Sabathia, where he and a teammate took over $40,000, jewelry, and according to Stringer himself, held Sabathia and his friend down by gunpoint. It literally halted his NBA chances the final time, and for these reasons, he never got to that level of opportunity again. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Emilio Gavario for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Damon Stringer was a 5'11" point guard shooting guard from Cleveland, Ohio that displayed an interest in basketball since 2-3 years old. As he grew older, it was clear he was going to be something in sports in general. Just so happens his breeding ground and environment was more geared towards hoops, and that's where he began to excel. His high school games were all standing room seats only, everyone huddled in to see the next great Damon Stringer play. He was quick, relentless, and most of all, he could shoot threes from 30 feet all cash with one of the sweetest releases you will see on the court. Ohio had found its star, and everywhere he went, there was someone there acknowledging it. He committed to Ohio State over Clemson in order to be close to home and finish off his high school career named essentially the best player in the state, winning Ohio Mr. Basketball. Stunt number 1, having to leave Ohio State. Choosing Ohio State to attend college gave Stringer the opportunity to come right in and be an important piece for the program, one that hadn't seen the NCAA tournament in 3 years prior to Damon arriving on campus. Nevertheless, Stringer had a solid freshman season where he was pretty much placed in the same role as in high school, with just a less talented team around him compared to other D1 programs. He won Freshman of the Year and Newcomer of the Year in the Big Ten, averaging 11 points and almost 5 assists in just 27 minutes per game. His sophomore year was even better, leading the team in scoring and assists once again, on his way to averaging over 15 points, 4 assists, and shooting over 40% from 3. But then things began getting more and more out of character for Stringer first being arrested for disorderly conduct as he and some teammates visited a local bar for drinks. An officer trying to clear the area after a large bar gathering asked Stringer to leave and go a different way than he wanted to go. When he didn't and continued arguing with the officer, he was arrested and taken to jail. After being bailed out, the team initially voted to dismiss Stringer, but he was saved because it was explained the incident was just a misunderstanding between the officer and star player, so he was back on the team. This time. The next, he wouldn't be so lucky. During a house party at 2 a.m. in the morning, a resident of the apartment complex and Damon got into an altercation after he backed into Stringer's car. Damon reportedly went crazy and attacked the man, stomping on the roof of his car until it broke. The two talked it out, Stringer apologized, and everything seemed cool, but the next day, I guess the guy had a change of heart and called the basketball office where he explained to the coaches what Damon did and that he was terrified. Stringer was kicked off the team permanently, having to transfer and sit out 2 years. Had he have a chance to stay at Ohio State, he may have been an NBA draft pick. Leaving and going down a level and losing those years was a major growth stunt. Stunt number 2, that extra year. Because of the hardships of his situation that caused him to literally lose time in years he'd have to sit out due to his dismissal and the transfer to Cleveland State, Damon Stringer petitioned to get that extra year back, but the hardship attempt was denied and Stringer was ordered to sit out the 98-99 season as well, making 2 years now that he had sat out, missing full seasons. From 97-98 to 98-99, Stringer planned his return and stayed in shape for it all, leading to having his most successful college season from an individual perspective, averaging 19 points, 3.6 assists, but even more turnovers. He was a great addition to Cleveland State, leading them in scoring, known for that same silky release he had in high school. But it just wasn't enough time, only playing a year for the small school that received little to no notoriety in the sports world, especially back then with no social media. Not to mention, Cleveland State was a poor basketball program, so averaging 19 on that team was expected and seen he should have done more. He was named Newcomer of the Year and First Team All-Conference, but it wasn't enough to sway scouts evaluating him after the season who felt at the time he wasn't an NBA player. Yet the Cavaliers gave him a shot to work out for the team and maybe make the training camp roster. But in that process, he and a friend attended an upscale private party and life changed. Stunt number 3, going to prison for robbery. Not just any robbery, but robbery of one of the biggest names in baseball at the time, who happened to be playing right there in the same city. While out partying with some friends, including teammate Jamal Harris, things were going good. Stringer went undrafted, but still had a shot with the Cavaliers, an opportunity he facilitated through John Lucas. The night before, after the initial planned party, Damon and Harris were invited to a private party at the Marriott hosted by CC Sabathia, and things were going well all throughout. According to Damon, the robbery only occurred after his friend felt robbed in a dice game he was at the party playing and decided to go back to retrieve the money owed to him. Not wanting his friend and teammate to go back to the suite alone, Stringer tagged along and, as he says, knocked on the door and held Sabathia and a friend hostage until they gave up the money and jewelry. On surveillance footage of some of the incident, it looks as if the story didn't add up, as you can see 2 individuals stop to help what looks like a drunk person, assumed to be Sabathia. Some believe that's how the robbery took place, but either way, Stringer was arrested and eventually sentenced to 4 years in prison for his role. He served over 2 years, and when he came home, the NBA was pretty much done for him as an option, though he did manage to go back overseas for a year to finish his career. He's now a basketball trainer and coach in Cleveland, looking to help other hoopers locally not make the same mistakes he did. All in all, a far cry from where Damon Stringer was supposed to have ended up, all because of the poor decisions he made one after the other that tainted his name to the point there was no chance of him making the NBA. bad influences all around and also poor perspective, seeing as he should have never been out to these bars and parties or hanging out late night with baseball players who've already made their name, but instead training or getting rest for training and becoming as developed and ready as possible when opportunity came. He was not, and for these reasons, his growth was stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.